Hi. Do you want to say hi to my students?
Hi.
Hi.
That's my big brother, Aiden O'Brien.
Okay.
Just call him DDM and me DDM.
Okay. All right, get lost. Go.
Hey,
Okay. So we're going to talk briefly about jurisdiction, and I'm going to chop this up into much smaller videos because of my bandwidth. But right now we're going to talk about jurisdiction for a divorce, and it's going to be a real brief video. We're going to talk about historically, so it was always where the couple itself was domiciled. And that has changed a little bit. But before we get to that, let's talk about the concept of full faith and credit. So full faith and credit means that a valid court order in one jurisdiction in one state is valid in another. And that has implications on family law in a couple of different circumstances. First, the historical common law marriage. So you know that that's fallen out of favor, but even if a state doesn't have common law marriage, it will often give full faith and credit to a common law marriage that was validly entered into in another state. So if Kentucky does not have common law marriage, but Georgia does, and a couple lived in Georgia, had a common law marriage there, and they come over into Kentucky, even though Kentucky does not have common law marriage, they may grant full faith and credit to that common law marriage. The only exception to this is when it is against the public policy of the receiving state, and that was a big deal before we had gay marriage nationwide. So that was used frequently to deny people in same-gender relationships full faith and credit for their marriages or civil unions in receiving states because it was a violation of public policy. So now let's talk about jurisdiction for divorce. In every state, if a couple is still living in a house, because remember, you can be separated but living under the same roof for purposes of the divorce, obviously that's going to give you jurisdiction. And it used to be wherever the marital property was, wherever that marital house was. Now, it's typically, and again, look at your statutes, but it's typically where a resident is domiciled, a party to the marriage is domiciled. So if the couples separate, and let's say they live in Kentucky, and wife leaves the marital home and gets an apartment right over the bridge in Indiana. Now, can she file in Kentucky? Typically, the statute is not going to allow her to file in Kentucky. Sometimes jurisdictional statutes for divorces have a time frame. So either you may be able to file in your first state for 6 months, but it may be that as soon as you leave that jurisdiction and you're domiciled elsewhere, remember domicile is where you live and it's where you hang your hat, where you sleep at night. You may have to prove jurisdiction that you've lived in a state for a certain period of time. So typically, the keys to determining jurisdiction in a divorce are either where the marital home is, where the couple resides, where the filing person, so if wife moves to Indiana and she qualifies for jurisdiction in Indiana, meaning she's domiciled in Indiana and she's been domiciled as long as the statute requires, sometimes there's a time frame, sometimes there isn't, she can file in Indiana even though the couple live together in Kentucky and husband still lives in Kentucky. That is a possibility. So take a look at your statute to see what jurisdictionally that says. But what that means is it's a little bit of forum shopping. If I am getting divorced in Kentucky and I feel like the Indiana courts may allow me a better bite at the equitable distribution apple, and I choose to move to Indiana to avail myself of that to file a divorce, that may be something I can do. It isn't the same as custody or child support. We're going to learn about that in the next little video, but that is jurisdiction based on divorce. Courts tend to kind of work it out if there are competing petitions. So let's say husband petitions in Kentucky, wife petitions in Indiana. That is going to be a much broader discussion of conflict of laws that I'm not going to get into right here. That is jurisdiction in divorce in a nutshell.